time. Okay, Scott. Scott is a little bit more trickier because, well, okay, let's get right at the crux of this. Here's the thing, and ultimately, I am an agnostic, to be sure. Ultimately, Scott says something very interesting. He says that theists like Dave Kerwin cherry pick from the Bible based on their moral precepts. I will argue that atheists discredit a lot of the rational arguments used to support the conjecture that God exists due to their moral preconceptions as well, their moral precepts as well. And the reason is this. Here, let's take two arguments which can be used to substantiate an argument for atheism and theism. Let's begin with theism. You have Aquinas and the teleological argument, which can be best illuminated by Paley's example of a watch. Let's say you're in the middle of a jungle and you stumble across a tree stump with a watch on it that's very intricate and complex. It's only rational to assume that that watch has a designer, has a maker. Paralleling this to the universe, which is infinitely more complex than the watch, it's only rational, accordingly, to assume logically that it also has a maker. Setting that aside, let's get to another argument for atheism, an argument to discredit the existence of God, namely the problem of evil. The problem of evil, if we assume the definition of God as an all-knowing God, an all-good God, an all-powerful God, an all-loving God, why would such a God permit such natural evils as famine, chronic hunger, malnutrition, tsunamis to ensue? Right? So why? Right? It's a big question mark, and this is often used as an argument to discredit the existence of God. Now here's the thing. The first argument, the teleological argument, is a rational argument, and many who try and debunk that argument tend to focus on the nuts and bolts of it. They get right into, well, actually, the universe isn't that complex, and if things were there and this happened, and first of all, I think that is not the right way to go about it. I think they should focus on the watch, and many would agree with me. And those who do focus on the watch say, well, yeah, it could be there by a product of chance, and they start, Again, if we're talking about what is rational, based on science and data, based on experience and human endeavor, what is more rational? And even the atheists that say, and this is where we're getting into the thing about them having their moral precepts, right? It's like this. First, okay, it's like this. When you're taking down a building, right? In this case, atheists are taking down theism, right? They're crumbling it down, knocking it to smithereens, right? To bits and pieces. What do? First, you get a permit, right? You get a permit. Then, okay, I mean, for the sake of argument, I'm just assuming this. First, you would logically get a permit. Then, you take down the building. But often, people do this, and this is where we get into the cherry picking, both atheists, theists, and on a day-to-day basis, people do this all the time. First, they knock down the building, and then someone asks, well, why did you do that? And then they start, oh shit, they start running for the plans. Oh well, and trying to get the permit. But no, atheists already have this, and both theists, they often already have these preconceptions, and then they formulate their argument predicated on these preconceptions. And that's why the atheists, out of all reason, will say, well, yeah, that watch could be there by product of chance. Which I think is just absurd, and certainly their words don't correspond to their actual convictions. I mean, if they're out in the jungle and they walk past that watch, no one with our rational faculty would assume that if it was a clear-cut stump and there was a watch on there, that it was there by product of chance. So I don't even think that even the ones who make the argument and play devil's advocate, their words don't correspond with their convictions. They don't really believe that. That's BS. And so furthermore, so what can we derive from this? What we're left with, Scott, in my opinion, is two arguments that are diametrically opposed to each other, yet both. Well, basically, what I think we're left with is that reason might not be the best tool and method for going about assessing such things. I mean, if you can have two arguments that are diametrically opposed to each other, and you have to make those huge leaps of thought to support your moral precepts, that's very problematic. And there's a lack of consistency between these two things. Personally, given that you can rationalize your way to the conclusion that God exists, or you can rationalize your way to the conclusion that God doesn't exist because of natural evils, I think that to some extent shows that we're not equipped with the right faculties for assessing such things. Maybe in order to assess such things, you need a higher developed, some sort of metaphysical faculty. Furthermore, this is my argument for being the only thing I can accept, is that what we're left with is arguments that are semi-rationally, both of them, and that what we're left with is agnosticism. This idea that we're not equipped with the rational faculties to make the decision. We're lacking information. And to say that we do have enough information, or to claim as theists or atheists do that no, we can't know or we can know, is merely absurd. What we're left with is just semi-rational arguments with all kinds of holes, both ways, both the atheist and the theist. Therefore, I'd rather admit that I'm a limited human being with a three-dimensional Euclidean mind that thinks in terms of syllogisms and, and that I don't know, and that I haven't been designed genetically with environment 2 in such a way as to be able to detect such things. We're lacking in cognitive capacity to make genuine assessments of such things. And this is almost what I consider a higher level of abstraction, looking at some of these problems. To me, atheism and theism, they're both at a lower level of abstraction in terms of the rationalization. I think if you elevate that to a higher level of abstraction, you will reach a higher level of truth and realize that all you have are some semi-rational arguments that aren't based on a whole lot of empirical data, and that there's a lot of holes in both of these. And that we can't make these huge leaps of faith to preserve our moral precepts, because both arguments have a certain degree of rationality attached to them, and there's a leap of faith. There's a bit of a leap of faith. When atheists make that problem of evil, okay, that sounds like a rational argument. If we're using that assumption, the one I defined before of God, that sounds like a rational argument. But then how do they account for the teleological argument in Paley's watch example without making a big leap of faith? Likewise, the theists who accept the teleological argument have a problem. They're also intellectually stuck when they're trying to account for the problem of evil. They're like ostrich theists. An ostrich is an animal that sticks its head in the ground, or in this case, philosophically, it's a thinker that ignores a problem. They're ignoring a huge problem. This is the dilemma I think we're left with. Hopefully this video was edifying. Hopefully you can address some of these things, and hopefully it will lead to future discussion. Take care, guys.